Hi there, folks, and welcome to another episode of Michael's Backyard Marina. Well, we got an interesting thing for you today. I just acquired this last night, and there's a little bit of a story to tell that goes along with it, but we'll walk through that after I get it out in the daylight and we give her a little bit of a walk around so we can kind of see what's going on and what I have here and the reason I purchased this particular boat. Let's drag it out. Hi there, folks, and welcome to another episode of Michael's Backyard Marina. I think we got an interesting one for you today. Last night I drug home a 1973 Larson 120 horse IO boat. Now I've been telling you guys, you might have been watching my videos for a minute now, and you know, when we start talking about outdrives and engines and different things like that on these old 120 horse Mercruisers, if you've got something majorly wrong, I'm going to tell you it's probably 8 out of 10 times, 7 out of 10 times, let's call it 74% of the time, you can go buy another junk boat to get the components you need for less than you can buy the components new. Now, is it a pick and a poke? You bet it is. Is it fun to go and explore and drag crap to your house? You bet it is, because my wife, she just, I'm glad she puts up with me. I'm telling you about that right now. So what I did is I went and negotiated with the guy. He was asking for this boat, said it ran, said he had it running for about 2.5 minutes. Water was pouring out of the side of the block because it doesn't have the plug in it for the, where you drain the block for winterization, which made me so happy because that means if it wasn't there to start with, it hasn't been there for a while, so chances are the block's okay. Not enough water can be in there to cause a problem. Even if it don't have antifreeze, it should be okay. So that was win number one, right? Win number two is he says it was pumping water. When he backed it into the water, he says, it'll float, it'll float. And I'm like, I'm guessing it might float, but there's no way you'd take this boat on the water. The stringers, somebody had cut the floor out, the fiberglass floor part out, and the stringers are just pure rot. I've dealt with that before. I'm not dealing with that again. So I bought this boat for parts only. And I tell you folks, he was asking $400. I negotiated him down to $300. So I got all this luxury for $300. Well, it's got a light right here. That's worth $1 or $2. I don't know if you guys have priced these. Bumper Dicky Hoogies guides, about $150 a pair. Got a 12-gallon. Let's look. Yeah. Oh, good Lord, what's that made out of? Lead? Tungsten? Golly. There we go, we got it. Let's just take a look. I hope I don't scratch the gel coat. So this is only thing wrong with this gas tank is it's got a crack on the fuel filler upper thing. Major crack. Ugh. Will it come off? Well, yeah, it unscrews. Pretty sure I can come up with one of these. All right, by golly, I bet you some JB Welder make her brand new again. But that's just the indicator of how full or empty it is. It doesn't have any gas. Oh, there's some gas in it. It's not good. It's why did I take such a deep breath? But It's got the little hose barb here. How many gallon is it? Whoa. Recommended safe filling level when tank is horizontal. Danger gasoline. This will clean up like brand new. Well, how many gallons are you? Oh, here, maybe something here. Got some more wordage. More warnings. It's got to be about 12. Oh. Well, what's the big secret? I'm going to call it 12 gallons. 10 to 12 gallons. Well, one of these brand new come in around 150 bucks. And I know a guy that needs one of these. There's some of my money back right there. It's got a key right up there. It's got all the instrument cluster right there. So I'm thinking, will we have a runner? Were the stories true about it running? Stay tuned. In this video, we're going to find out. In this video, we're going to find out if she runs for sure. And then I'm going to strip it down. But my hopes and dreams here, I'm going to pull this engine, outdrive, the whole connecting mechanism, the wiring harness, and the trailer. The trailer, there's some interesting stuff going on with the trailer. Bilge pump, well, that looks like brand new. Except for where the bolt rusted off. Now see if you notice anything interesting. Let's just say in this area right here. Yep, it had 3 lug nuts on this side. That was it. And I'm like, wow, you're missing a lug nut. And then he goes, nope, I'm missing where you bolt it. It's ground off from about here to here. There's no threaded hole here on that hub. So what the guy tells me is he's dragging this thing home behind his 3/4 ton Ford dually flatbed. And he don't know when it happened, but the wheel fell off. Gone, wheel's gone. And there's a flat spot, oink, like this, where that one lug bolt should be, is ground completely away. It's gone. So he had to go get another tire and a wheel to get it the rest of the way home. I'm like, interesting story. I can get home on 3 lug nuts. I'm not worried about that. This boat's about, how far away was it? 49 miles from my house when I went to get it. And interestingly enough, I'm easing out of there, coming out of that place for about 1.5 miles of dirt road, and there's a couple of curves I'm going around, and I'm looking in the rearview mirror out the driver's side, and I noticed the wheel just kicking a little. I looked at my wife, and I'm like, I think we got a bad bearing on that wheel. We're just going to take it easy. And so I did. I didn't go over 45 miles an hour. That's me taking it easy. Finally, about 1 mile from the next town I'm coming up on, which has pretty much just a gas station, not much more than that. I pull into this BP, and then by this time the thing's going, oh, come on, and the wheel's just kicking hard. I'm thinking, I told my wife, this is getting ready to fall off. And I thought it was the bearings actually that were going to crap on me because of the sound it was making, but no, lo and behold, I get out and I look. And this has 4 bolts, right, that bolt the wheel on, not studs coming out that have nuts. 4 bolts. There's 1 left. 1 bolt, and it's backed out a long ways. And the rest of the holes in the wheel that's there are wallered out to almost double their size they started out as. I'm like, huh, now what am I gonna do? So, fortunately, I carry tools in the old back of the Jeep. I had my tools, I had my Ugga-Dugga, I had my floor jack, and I wish I'd have brought my air pump, but I didn't. But I did take a spare tire with me, just in case. I saw this as a 4-lug, and you guys might have heard me preaching about that in another video. I took as a 4-lug, it fits. Well, You might want to check that you have air in your spare when you take it with you. I didn't. I just picked it up and threw it in the back. Well, fortunately, the BP there had a 50 cents for some air. I pumped it up. I put it on with the one bolt it had left. I come over here to old 3-bolt, and I pulled one of the 3 bolts out. So, and I put it on the other side. We're in business now. We got 2 bolts on either side. That should run balanced, right? Just 2. 3 would have made it out of balance. But that got me home. I was honestly, no joke, and I was on some back roads, guys. I was on some 2 lanes that I didn't see but one tail light in the next 36 miles in my rearview mirror, and it was way back there and it peeled off. I never saw somebody behind me, and I was running 60 miles an hour the rest of the way home. And that's how I got old Mr. Larson here home. And it was dark. Yep, that's why I was glad there's nobody behind me. By the time I got home and had all that trouble, it was dark. And it has lights. There's no wires running to them. But, so let's get busy. I'm gonna throw all this junk out of the boat that's in the boat. And then I'm gonna check out some things on the engine. And then I'll check if the old battery connections will battery connect to a battery. And then we'll pull the spark plugs out, and I'm gonna roll it over. I'm gonna spray some stuff in the cylinders first, and then I'm gonna roll it over. And the guy says that brand new spark plug wires, which they look relatively new, brand new cap, rotor, blah, 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 blah. And it ran. And, but it looks like it sat out in the sun a lot with no cover on it, which is, you know me, cover your stuff up. Come on. You know better. Even if it's an old piece of crap, cover it up. You might have an engine that's valuable to somebody, like a joker like me. But once we find out it runs, I just noticed something on the valve cover. It's funny. It's got 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 on the front cylinder. Front cylinder's number 1. So, it would appear the wiring looks okay, but, well, check that out. He said it ran, so I'm gonna leave it as is and see if it'll pop and poop and fire. All right, let's get this unhooked from my vehicle so it's low enough that I can drop the outdrive down. And then I think we're gonna get it right to figuring out what I gotta do to plug in the gas line and get some fuel running into this bad boy. And see if she'll pop and go. Let's check the dipstick real quick. What do you think about that? All right, the boat's tipped way up in the air, but the motor's sitting not far out of level, but a little out of level. I really wish it had I'm gonna have to put something underneath the tongue. Let's pull this out and see what's on it. Ugh. Ooh, gas. A little milky looking too. Some water might be getting in there somewhere. It'll be good enough to start it up and drain it, but I have a feeling we got some water leakage there. Could be a head gasket, but we'll fire it up and see what happens, and then we'll drain it and go from there. Okay, the more I think about this engine, I pulled the dipstick on it. That's pretty milky, and I rubbed it. It doesn't have a lot of lubricity left to it, so I'm really not going to turn this motor over with that oil in it. As much as I want to hear it run and get it going right away, I am going to take the time to change the oil and get rid of this crappy old Fram filter off there. I'm going to put me at least a Napa Gold or a Wix on here, whichever one I have in stock, before I decide to turn this thing over and give her a rip. But what we'll do is we'll change the oil. I'm going to pull the spark plugs. We'll fog the cylinders, make sure that they're not turning over dry. Spin her over for a second or two. Put my compression tester on there. Let's see what it's got for compression. And we'll go from there. And we'll just see if the old 120 has still got what it takes. Now, I'm not sure if this is going to show up on camera real well, but there's about 3 inches of debris. And I don't know what all down in the bottom of this boat. So I'm going to have to get the old shop vac out and give her a good old vacuuming before I get busy crawling my butt around in that thing trying to drain the oil. Okay, last night I was able to get the oil drained out of this bad boy, and as luck would have it, this piece here, all right, as you can see, this floor is completely rotted, and there's no, I mean, it's rot. This thing is shot, but it allows me to be able to do this with the oil pan. And normally I would suck the oil out through the dipstick with my pump, but I wanted to make sure I get this thing thoroughly drained. This stuff looks like caramel, and it's not healthy. It's not. Something may be going on inside this motor yet, but the crazy part is, there's a lot of gas in that oil, a lot of gas. So what I'm going to do before we turn this over, we're going to pull the spark plugs out. I'm going to send my bore scope down the cylinders and see what I can see there before I even move this engine at all. The good news is I do have fresh oil in here, and I also dumped some oil. Back in here when I had the drain plug out and all this old nasty gas oil came out. And dumped about a half a quart in here, and I saw nothing but pure clean oil come out the bottom. So we may be okay. I have a feeling that's not water in the oil, because it would have separated. And these don't have antifreeze in them anyway. They just run regular lake water. So we may be okay. I think somebody just got a lot of gas in their oil. That's not good. Well, the number 3 cylinder spark plug wasn't very tight. Hopefully no water got in the cylinder from that. These plugs don't look very good. Dry and dusty looking. Fortunately not real rusty looking. I'd be curious how long ago this guy had this thing running actually. Because it... overall appearances would say it's been a while, but sun fade can do a lot of crazy things, you know. These spark plug wires are really good wires. As far as I've got some of these before. This wire holds up really well to the UV. I'm going to go ahead and pull the distributor cap off. We'll take a look underneath there as well. And what I'm doing here is just more or less a systematic way of just approaching an engine you know virtually nothing about. It's got a points ignition. Hasn't been converted to electronic yet. You can see this wire here was smashed, pinched, but it looks like it's still insulating. That's good. Points look a little burnt. Inside the rotor cap, it's been here a while. So he says new cap and rotor and stuff, but my gosh, that's not 2.5 minutes worth of running there. So that was a lie. Guarantee you that. He said he ran it 2.5 minutes. That's not 2.5 minutes worth of running. That's all there is to it there. All right, let's get the old bore scope out and see what we can see. Oh, now the sun's gonna come out right when I don't want it out. So as you guys can see, oh, I don't know if you can or can't see. You can actually see what the camera's looking at here. We're gonna send her down in there. And it has little lights on the end of it. So when we get down in here, we'll be able to hopefully see something or nothing. Well, first glance, I'm not seeing anything crazy alarming. The top of the number 3 piston looks like there's a little oxidation on top of it from sitting around. Well, you can't, it's kind of hard to see, but you can see a little piston oxidation there. Nothing that I wouldn't feel would burn off, and put a little Berryman's tune-up or something down through it. But I don't know, I can't see anything that's really, you know, throwing up any big red flags for me. It has been sitting a while without running. Well, I won't have any problem putting some spray down here and see if this thing moves. I don't think it's a stuck motor, but we'll find out here in just a minute. Now I got some engine store fogging oil. I'm just gonna spray a whole bunch of that. When you think you've got just enough in there, do a little bit more. You cannot overfog it at this moment in time. Let's put it that way. I'm trying to get the whole top of the piston coated so it can run down all around the rings. Because as much gas was in this oil, the cylinders got washed down just a touch. Once that's in there, I gotta take my handy dandy pry bar, because these don't have a nut on the front of them. Let's just see. Oh yeah, she turns. Actually turns real well. Just gonna roll it all the way around once or twice. So the good news is it's definitely not stuck, and looking at the bores, I didn't expect it to be because they looked really good. I like that. Guess the next thing I'm going to dare to do is hook a battery up to it. Get a battery hooked up to it, then we'll whip it over a few times, and then we'll throw the old compression test on it. The other thing I'm going to do, I'm going to show you guys something about the valve train. I'm going to go ahead and pull this valve cover off so I can show you what I'm looking for while this machine's rolling over, and hopefully you'll be able to see it. And you'll know if your lifters and your tappets and everything are in halfway decent shape by doing this next test, or one of these next tests. So let's go ahead and get this valve cover off, and we'll go from there. And a battery. Let's get a battery. One thing I do like about these old Mercruisers is they got aluminum valve cover, which you wouldn't think is a big deal, but it also helps dissipate heat. Now I see a little bit of that milkiness up here. But it's no rust up here. A little milkiness on this number 4 cylinder, but the rest of the cylinders look like they still got the good oil. So none of that bad crap really ever got pumped up on here. Everything looks pretty good. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put a yellow paint stripe or whatever paint pen I got on these push rods. And when I start rolling this motor over, we should see all those things moving around. That'll tell you that the crown on top of the lifters are still in good shape and it's spinning in there. The reason they are supposed to spin is they reduce the amount of wear that happens if it just sits in one spot. Might as well get some of this nastiness out of here. No sense of putting that in my new oil. I am planning on running this for a little while. You know, give it 10, 15, maybe a half hour, maybe an hour worth of run time. Just sitting here idling, run it up through the RPMs in there and just let it sit there and work. And then we'll change the oil again. And we'll make sure oil is coming up through all this. Everything's pumping where it should. We'll check we'll make sure, see if the oil pressure gauge actually works. If it does, we'll be able to watch the oil pressure. We'll be able to watch, hopefully, the temperature. And see if we got ourselves a good block going here. But so far, I'm not seeing any big red lights. Alrighty, we got the old Napa here this is actually out of the Banana. And it's a fully charged battery. It's a dual purpose marine, dual purpose, so it's a starter / deep cycle. I don't know what kind of connections we're going to have here because these wires look a little tough. That's a good sign. There's no spark. That could be because there's no good connection. So that all seems to have connected up okay without any crazy weird noise. I guess I'll go get my paint pen. We'll mark those out on the old push rods. All right, so what I'm gonna do here, put an orange stripe on each one of these. And this is gonna dry. You don't have to worry about cleaning it off. It's not gonna hurt anything in your engine. I chose orange for the specific purpose. It was on top in my drawer. I'm hoping you guys can see that. It doesn't have to be perfect. This has to be visible so you can actually see rotation. All right. Are you guys as nervous as I am? We're gonna hit the old key and see if it does anything. I saw the oil pressure needle flicker when I turned it on. I see the amp hour needle flicker. I see the temp flicker. That's all good news. Uh-oh. I think the old solenoid just stuck right there. That was very short-lived. Let's give her some love taps with the old hammer. Oh, I just heard it pop back. Hey, there we go. Never mind. Turns out the shifter neutral switch wasn't engaged. So now we got her to roll over. And as you can see, I'm missing orange on all but 3. Let's spin her over a little bit more. Now, as you can see, these two weren't turning at all. So this could mean the lifters are a little flat, because this one's definitely will move. It could be adjustment. It could be the lifters are flat, so we might have to replace a few lifters here, which I don't think that's a big deal either. You take this side cover off, take the distributor out, and you replace lifters. But I'm not going to worry about that so much right now. I can use this video to watch it back and see which ones weren't moving, and then I can replace those lifters. And you know, I might replace them all while I'm at it. I can replace the lifters, and the rods are probably good. We'll take a look at those. But that's pretty cool. It rolls over. All right, I rolled it over a bunch there. I know that's kind of hard on the starter. And I saw some stuff spitting out of this one. Looks like we're getting some oil pumping up. I've got about 20 pounds of oil pressure just from turning it over, which is good. See a little bit of that creamy stuff that was in the oil pan coming on up through the system. But it looks like we also got some fresh stuff coming up through there. Let's get the compression tester out and see what's going on there. Getting closer real fast, guys and gals. Well, it would appear that grasshoppers are a fan of Larson boats. Well, I'm hoping I can splice and dice this video together for you guys because my battery died, and I'm going to run this around one more time. I'm currently sitting on top dead center, but I want to make sure that I don't miss this part with everybody. So what we're going to do right now we're at top dead center. You can see where this distributor rotor is pointing right now. It should be pointing toward the #1 cylinder, but I've seen this happen on multiple boats for multiple reasons. I have no idea why. And maybe for the manufacturer, they just did it this way, and the book is wrong. That's very much likely. So we're going to go round and round we go. Just going to crank it over. You're going to watch this exhaust valve, because it's done gone bang at top dead center, right? And it's going to watch this exhaust valve open up. That means the piston's coming up, shoving out those exhaust gases. And then it's going to go back shut. And after it goes shut, the intake valve is going to open and suck in all that beautiful mixture of fuel and air. Boom, sucking air in. As soon as it stops moving, that means it's at the bottom of that stroke. Now it's coming up. And what we're doing is coming up on the compression stroke. And when that gets to top dead center, there'll be a mark over here, I'll show you later, on the pulley that I'm watching for that says, okay, we're at top dead center. Let's go ahead and fire this baby, put some spark in it. So I'm going to get right up here. I'm at top dead center right there. And as you can see, the distributor is pointing right there. I want the distributor pointing at 1 or 2 o'clock. What I'm seeing here is this wire is very short. They don't give you a lot of extra wire, and it's already strained. I can't turn it any more this way if I wanted to, which probably gives me a good indicator that something timing wise is not quite right. Now it is open as far as the points go, but we're going to take a little bit deeper dive here. I'm going to go ahead and pull this distributor off. I'll probably have to take this little guy loose here. And let's see what kind of wrench. It is 9/16 as I suspected. Unless you have a specialty wrench to get in there, it makes it hard to get in there. What I do have is a little crow's foot that I think might work. We'll see. I can put my crow's foot on my ratchet, and lo and behold, that broke her right loose. This moves real nice and easy in there, which is a good sign. Nothing sticky stiff in there, but maybe somebody had it apart recently too. So we're going to pull the bolt completely out along with the keeper here. These old keepers are just a piece of wire bent. These two things go down to hold the distributor from rotating. Some of the newer ones have a piece of metal. Now there's a whole lot of trash around here that I don't want to go down this in the engine, so I'm going to use my brake clean and I'm going to blast this clean. Why brake clean? Because it works really well. Now I got brake clean here with jet power technology, non-chlorinated. But the nice thing about this stuff is it evaporates fast, but has a lot of power. That's as clean as that's been for a while. Nice thing about this stuff, it evaporates, it dries quickly, doesn't leave any oily residue behind. because it's designed for brakes, and you can't have oily residue on your brakes. Now what I want to do here is I'm going to go ahead and pull this up, and I'm going to aim this toward this other socket here. Now the reason that isn't lining up and dropping down is because the slot on the bottom isn't lined up. But I'm trying to get it first in this direction I want it. See, I want it about right there. But see, this isn't dropping in where I want. Oops. Well, that didn't help if you don't have it in the right spot. See, that's that way. We got to go a little bit more. See, right about there is where I want it to drop in. It'll finish clocking. Now I've got to get the slot on the bottom lined up so it's in line with the shaft. And I do that with my big screwdriver. Make sure you've got a clean screwdriver. So we're going to just lift this up. Take note of which way this is facing right now, because I want it to be about right here. And I can look down in here and kind of eyeball that on the oil pump. Perfect. Now you can see this is pointing at the number 1 cylinder, about 2 o'clock. And so I can go ahead and lock this back down. Now the other thing you can check is your timing on your breaker points. Now I'm going to go ahead and file them, because right there is top dead center. See, that thing's barely opening up like it should. I think we're in a good starting point right there. We'll go ahead and put the clamp back on and reattach it lightly. All right, I've got this clamp back on the distributor under here. I've got it so I can move it, but it has a decent amount of resistance, so it's going to make it easy for me to grab the cap and do some timing once it's put back together. The other thing I want to do real quick, we're going to pull this off for a minute. I want to lift this up and just check on the advance weights that are underneath here. That was very stubborn. Oh yeah. You gotta use a high quality screwdriver. You don't want to strip stuff out, guys. Now the reason I'm gonna pull this plate off is I want to look at, there's advance weights underneath here. I want to make sure they're not frozen. Because if they are frozen or stuck or whatnot, your timing won't advance as the RPMs go up, and you won't get the proper performance out of your machine. Now all I'm doing in here is reaching in here and making sure these advance weights move freely. They're not stuck or anything, which they do move very nice. Springs bring them all the way back down. They move as they should. So for now, I'm just going to stick this right back on just the way I found it. Normally I would take those out, clean them up, put just a dab of lube on them. But right now, for this purpose of this engine test, is just to see if we got a decent engine before I pull this thing actually out of the boat. So now that I've determined that that's moving freely, you know, because it could be stuck in the fully advanced for some reason, and that could cause you to have trouble starting it, won't act right, won't rev up right, you know, all kinds of fun stuff like that. All right, now that that's secured, the next order of business is, let's get these points adjusted. And the cool part is I can bring this right around till it's on a lobe where it needs to be open. and then I can run my file in there, and I'll back it off, and I'll run my emery tape in there and get it good and clean, and then I'll spray it clean just to flush any debris out of there. And I'll just use some electrical cleaner to do that, along with, you know, this little sponge over here. I know you probably can't see because of this hose. This little sponge over here is supposed to have a little oil on it to put some lube onto this particular, on the cam lobe, and keep it lubricated so it doesn't prematurely wear out your little fiber piece that runs on it. Because if that wears out, your point gaps start shrinking and getting closer and closer and closer till it, all of a sudden it doesn't work. But hopefully before it does all that, you would have noticed that it hasn't been running really, really good. So, all right, we're good there. Let's get that piece of emery paper. Let's sand that up and freshen that up a little bit, and then we'll adjust the gap. And the adjust the gap, it's pretty easy. There's a screw right here that you can loosen up. You can stick your screwdriver right in the slot, kind of twist this open and shut, and retighten. Pretty simple. Now I'm gonna rotate this down so it's not on a lobe, since I'm still at top dead center. I got my little piece of 400 grit. I'm just gonna open up the spring a little bit, very gently. Slide this in there, let it close, and then drag it out. And you can see a lot of just keep repeating that. We'll just get all that corrosion off of there. Gets it pretty darn clean. Oh yeah, looking gorgeous, Clark. Very nice, very clean. Now what I did is I put a drop of 30 weight on my fingertip. Now just 2 drops on that sponge is all I'm putting on it. That will be so much lubrication for that, maybe even a little over lubed. It'll soak into that little sponge. But it won't be too excessive to cause it to actually fling around and get oil all over everything. You don't want oil on your contact points. So now we'll just bring this back around to where it's open, which looks pretty good. I'm gonna get my little Dremel wire wheel out, and I'm gonna clean this off, just give it a nice little shine. And I'll do the same thing inside this rotor cap. I'll just shine up these little points here, these little contact areas, just to knock that little bit of burnt corrosion off of it. And I'll be ready to stick this cap back on once I set the gap. Right now the gap is open. I want to make sure that is, I think it's 30 thou, maybe it's 20 thousandths. I'll be back in just a second and let you know. All right, what I have here, this actually came with my boat, my 1976 Starcraft that has a 120 Mercruiser IO. And this covers 120, 140, and 165. I use this. It has been around the block for a minute. I actually probably should just cut this thing apart, laminate it, put it in a little 3-ring binder or something, but I'm not sure how well this is going to show up. I have trouble seeing this on my little screen. But there's a couple of there's a firing order here, 1, 3, 4, 2. So it's 1, 3, 4, 2 is the firing order. That's important because of when we put our spark plugs back on. Here it shows right here that the number 1 is right here, pointing toward the number 1 cylinder on the distributor cap. This is the book that came with it. This is why I keep talking about that should be pointing to the number 1 cylinder. And I found it on 3 different 120s that I've run across that don't have it that way for whatever reason. I don't know why. So that's why I'm putting it back to the way the book shows here. The other piece of information we need off of here is the point gap. On the 120 and 140 horse, the point gap is 22 thousandths. On the 165 horse, it's 16 thousandths. And the timing, also, where'd it go? I saw it here somewhere. Dun, dun, dun. Timing at idle RPM, 8 degrees before top dead center. That's the idle timing. So you want to make sure you're idling, and that'll tell you what your idle RPM is going to be. So compression pressure, 140. All my cylinders are well over 140. So I'm calling that still factory good enough. It's actually, you know, as high as 150, almost 155 to 160 on one cylinder. So that's all good news there. That means everything's still good and tight. I just wanted to show you this because this is where I'm getting my information as to tune this guy up. Does that make sense? If anybody wants to email me, I can scan this picture in for somebody and send it to you. If you want to email me, in the description below, there are emails down at the bottom. If you want to email me and say, hey, can you send me page 3 out of that little owner's manual? I want that information right here. Or you can freeze your screen right now and then take a picture of that, print it off, and then you'll have yourself a copy. But anyway, this is kind of a neat old book. It's got some of the stuff. It shows the spark plug gap. It's got some key information in here. But I was kind of happy to have it. So that's what we're going to set stuff to. And says here the oil pressure even at 35 pounds at 2,000 RPM is what it should be running. Lots of neat stuff to let you know that this motor is or isn't okay. So let's get this point gap set. Let's get the distributor cap put back on. We'll get my timing light out. We'll put some spark plugs in it, and we'll see if we can make this thing make some noise. All right, I got my feeler gauge out. We're gonna set it to 22. 22 is looking a little tough. We're just gonna check to see what it feels like, if it feels like there's 22 or there's more. It feels like that's a little tight. We'll back this off a little bit and put a screwdriver in here and kind of move things a little bit. Still tight. Now you're trying to get this to drop in there. You want to feel just a little resistance, slight drag, but you don't want to see that arm move. Now, you don't want to put any torque on this feeler gauge either. You want to be able to just kind of like line it up and just feel it just barely drop in there. Oh, that feels perfect right there. We'll take and snug this back down. We'll see if anything moved. Perfect. We're going to run with it right there. Now we've got the rotor cap back on. Rotor cap. Yeah, the rotor. Back on, pointing here. Now I got to get my little Dremel. We'll clean it up. We'll be ready to stick this back on, put some plugs in it. We're getting real close. It's scary how close we're getting. One of my favorite tools in my arsenal of tools is a little, this came from Harbor Freight, but it's a little Dremel, battery operated with a little wire wheel on it. That comes in so handy for stuff just like this. It's just the right size of scale to do. Look at that, looks like brand new. We didn't apply too much torture, pressure, or tool to get the job done. Nice thing about this is it fits right inside the old caparoonie, no problem. I can go in there and just polish up those little surfaces. You don't want to remove any metal, but you can make it look like brand new again. Let's get rid of a little more onions here. Oh, there we go. Make sure there's no wiring, little wires from your Dremel left in there. We're going to go ahead and put this cap back on. Now, as we can see here, the number 1 is way too long. As we know, number 1 is pointing. We know this is number 1 now, right? We're going to go ahead and stick this back on. So now we know number one needs to be the shortest spark plug wire we've got, which is this guy right here. This guy can go right in here just like that. And then the firing order was what? 1, 3, 1, 3, 4, 2, right? 1, 3, 4, 2. There's one. Next one's going to be 3, which is this guy back here. So this needs to go this is number 3. That'll go right there. Number 4 is next, which is, this one's crazy long. These wires are like, so 1, 3, 4 is going to be right here. Four is way back here. We got lots of extra wire here. These are way too long. Even this 2 is just too much, but that's okay. So 1, 3, ba-bam. 4, and number 2 is going to go right here. That's as complicated as it is right there. Now we're ready for spark plugs. Now we can put the coil one back on here. Now right here, this is disconnected because this is a kill switch for the neutral safety switch for the spark. So we're going to leave that off for now. And you're going to say, well, how are you going to kill it? Well, if I have to, I'll just grab this and yank it. I might take a little bit of a hit, but it's not going to be bad. Alrighty. Well, we need spark plugs because I'm pretty sure I don't want to put these in. These look kind of tough. But these are a Champion RN-6. I currently just stuck the valve cover back on while I ran to the store, just in case it decided to rain. It's been overcast all day, which has been awesome. But I had to run to the spark plug store to keep this project going. So now we got our spark plugs and we've got them gapped. 35 thousandths. That's what the book says. And I'm putting some never sees on them because that's what you should do. Not that I've ever had any boat spark plugs give me any issues. Remember, 1, 3, 4, 2. So number 2 is right here. All right, one other thing I learned talking to the gentleman that I purchased this rig from is that he tried to fill the oil, change the oil and or fill it from the top. So, and he said he could barely get, he said he's pretty sure he couldn't even hardly get a quart in. And so that tells me, I left him with some knowledge saying, hey, you know, you got to fill these things up from the bottom. That gear oil is thick. Wow. There's no water in it, which that's fantastic news. But I'm also not sure there's a lot of oil in there. Because this looks like a lot of the fresh oil I just put in the top coming out now. That's nuts. I'm gonna try putting some in and then let it come right back out. I know it's an expensive flush. Well, that tells me the hole's not plugged. That's good. Well, apparently he didn't get jack squat back in there because there wasn't anything hardly coming out. I just had more come out that I put in than what he had put in. I'm just trying to get some of this stuff flushed a little bit if I could, possibly. Wow, there wasn't anything in there to speak of. Okay. We're gonna go ahead and top it off now. This takes about 1.5 quarts has been my experience with these, that it actually takes to fill them up. I can hear it going up through there. It's so hollow, it's so empty. Okay, it made it. In between here, there's a split right through here. In between here, there is a little tiny hole about that big that lets the gear oil go from the bottom to the top. That's why you can't fill it from the top. And I can hear, I felt the resistance in this as soon as it hit that in the pump. And what I'm looking for, I'll keep pumping it until it comes off that top hole. So right there's a quart we put in it. Let me go get the other quart. All right, second quart hooked up to the pump. And we'll pump till we see it comes out of that top. Just like that. Once that comes out the top, I'm gonna give it a few extra squirts. I wanna flush anything that's in there out if I can. Reinstall that plug. Once that plug's installed, you can pull this one and lose very little oil because the other one creates a vacuum. And you won't even lose a teaspoon, which in the grand scheme of 1.5 quarts ain't a lot. And this took about 32 plus 4, about 36 ounces to fill her up. Now I know I can start this up and not wreck the outdrive. All right, folks, let's do a little quick recap on where we're at that led us up to this point. We're getting ready to start the engine for the first time, possibly. It all depends on the condition of the carburetor, which these carburetors can be good or bad. You just don't know. What I'm gonna do, what we've done, we changed the oil because that was like chocolate caramel and it shouldn't have been that light of brown. It had a lot of gas in it. So we changed the oil, we put a new filter on it. We've pulled the distributor out, flipped it around. So the rotor is pointing toward the number 1 cylinder like the book says, but we've covered that, what that's all about. I put new spark plugs in it. We've set the points gap at 22 thousandths. We've got all the spark plugs in, gapped at 35 thousandths. We have checked the compression. The compression is well above book, which is a great thing. The thing we just finished up was changing the gear oil, or I should say draining the little bit of gear oil was there. It's a good thing this guy didn't take this out in the lake and run it. Not that the boat wouldn't just plain blown apart anyway, because the transom's rotten, the floor is rotten, and it's a hot mess. So the boat's junk. But it might have been a case where a guy actually got in over his head, and it was a good thing, because he would have destroyed the outdrive. Hopefully the outdrive's okay. We're gonna run it. We filled her full of oil. We put the good stuff in it, and you guys might be thinking, wow, you just wasted like $20 worth of, well, it was actually about $17, $18 worth of fluid or gear oil. But if it is good, I wanna make sure I give it the best chance. If it's not good, small price to pay, okay? In the grand scheme of things. So it's cheap insurance for me in my opinion. I've got a little 3-gallon gas tank with 2-stroke, 50-to-1 2-stroke in it. And the reason it's got that in it is because it's what I had. And the other big thing that's nice to have is on an engine that hasn't ran for a long while, a little 2-stroke through it isn't going to hurt. It's going to give some lubrication to that top end that it doesn't currently have or hasn't had for quite some time. Yes, I sprayed fogging oil in there. That'll buy you a couple of seconds. But getting that 2-stroke oil in there, and yeah, you might foul your plugs. And yeah, the plugs are $4 a piece. That's $16 for the spark plugs. but honestly it won't. Not for this short amount of time. You know, half hour, a little two-stroke, then you follow it up with some regular gas later on, it's gonna be just fine. I've got the timing light hooked up. It's an induction timing light hooked up to the battery and hooked up to the #1 spark plug wire. So we'll be able to fire this thing up. The distributor is still snug where I can grab it and easily rotate it. Not easily, with some resistance. So I can set timing. And the valve cover is setting on here just to keep the splatter down to a minimum. But we'll also be able to hear it and see if there's any valves that need adjusting. Maybe once it's fully warmed up, I might adjust them while it's running. You guys ever seen that? You can do that. There's two ways to do it. You can do it cold, where you tighten it down where there's no free motion on the compression stroke, and then you can give it another, I forget what it is, turn, half turn, 3/4 turn. Don't quote me on that. Or the nice thing is when it's running, you can just back it off, hear it clatter, tighten it down till the clatter stops. Stop, done. That's easy. We can do that on all 16 push rods. 16? No, this is 4-cylinder. 8 push rods, or rocker adjustment. So we can get that adjusted pretty quick and easy. Let's see if this wiring will get me through the rest of this job. The wiring looks a little tough on it. The starter was touch and go for a second, but then I realized the neutral switch was engaged and not letting it, would just let it go click and stop. But that's okay, it did what it was supposed to do. This is the part where I get nervously excited because I'm down to turning the key over and let's see what happens. And the kill switch wire, or the neutral switch wire, is on, but I think the kill switch will still work when I turn the switch off. Time will tell. And well, I'm gonna have this view from right here, and I'm gonna get the GoPro over here, and I'll see if I can switch between views, which will be awesome. So you can see it, hear it, and the neat part about this thing, the belt that's on it, it's a Kiekhofer belt. So, or Kiekhofer Mercury, that takes it back a few years, right? The belt still says Kiekhofer on it. Now whether that was, I'm sure when they just went to straight Mercury and Mercruiser and left the Kiekhofer off of it, Kiekhofer Mercury, now it's just Mercury. That belt's old. It has stood the test of time. And this will go back to tell you, you know, when you see the compression on this thing and the age of this boat, it's a 73, right? That's this old boat, old motor. The thing with these motors is they don't have that many hours on them typically. I wish they had an hour meter on them, but I bet you there's a lot of these engines that just haven't even ran 1,000 hours, period. And it's a car motor. But like I explained in other videos, these run in the most stressful situation you can put them in, which is a full load all the time when they're going, because it can't coast. Boats don't coast very well. You pull it back to neutral, see how far you coast. It's like throwing out a parachute. The things just come off plane and stop, especially if you're under 30 miles an hour, or around 30 miles an hour or less. Okay, well that catches us up to where we're at. Oh mercy, here we go. Actually, I'm gonna pull the air cleaner off real quick because I want to see what's going on inside and go from there. All right, I got both cameras going. Let's go ahead and get that air cleaner off. Now we got water on the muffs. We'll go ahead and turn that on. Water's on. Choke's fully engaged. Let's see if she'll kick. I'm gonna give her a few primes with the primer bulb first, see if it does anything. I don't know, we'll see. I'm gonna start her, give me a couple of helpings here. I don't think we're pumping any fuel. Oh, there's a little gas in there. Let's play with the timing just a little bit here. I got spark because I'm getting juice to the timing light. Boy, the engine sounds nice and quiet. Let's just play with the timing here a little bit. All right, I disconnected the linkage so I could have more independent control of the throttle, which is cool because now I can see the accelerator pump does throw some shots of fuel down in there. So we're gonna pump it a few times and give her another go. I think she likes her fuel. And there again, I don't know how this one's adjusted, but definitely if I pump it, make another adjustment there, I don't know. That seems to be about the spot for the timing so far. I just need to get some more juice. So I may need to have somebody else help me start it while I hold the butterflies open a little more. Because when I'm pumping it in there with the accelerator pump, it seems to be doing something for me. We are so stinking close. Again. Yeah. Well, folks, I'm going to call that the end of part one. So let's talk through a few of the things you just saw in the video. I tried to capture as much of it as I could. The automatic choke works like it's supposed to. Once it started warming up, it actually started opening up and stayed open. Some of the things you're going to see in the video I want to explain here, which you're going to go, whoa, what's going on? This thing is shot, it's junk. No, it's not. Actually, the motor, the engine internals are very tight and running very good so far. One of the things you might have heard was a sound like a rattle. That's this. The valve cover is just sitting there to help control a little bit of the splatter so it doesn't get oil all over everything, but it did kind of run down, but that's okay. This is the early stages before I pull this motor out. I just want to get this thing running right. One thing I'm learning is the carburetor does need some work. The charging system, looking up on the dash, the charging system was putting out amperage. That's good. That means this thing's doing what I want it to do there. Oil pressure, well over 40 pounds. It's supposed to be at 40 pounds, I think at 2,000 RPM, I think is what it claimed. The tachometer was not working, it's not engaged, but that's okay. I'm not worried about that right now. But we got ignition. The fuel pump's pumping like a beast. I pulled this hose off just kind of curious, and just as soon as that thing goes one revolution and one pump, it just shoots out a lot of fuel. So the fuel pump's pumping like a champ. I could run it wide open. As you guys saw, I could bottle feed it, but I couldn't get it to idle. So some of the idle circuit, this carburetor I'm guessing is very, very dirty and could use an overhaul. So I'm gonna pull the carburetor off next here, and we're gonna get that taken off, and I'll take it inside. I'm gonna show you what I do to rebuild the carburetor. This is the old Rochester 2-jet. I've rebuilt a couple of these. The one in the old green boat that I just finished up, that carburetor worked flawlessly. No sense in touching it. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Of course, if you follow me, if it ain't broke, fix it till it is. So that's what we need to do here. We need to fix it till it's broke. All right. What else can I tell you? So all the water you saw shooting out underneath here, well, there's two plugs that have been removed from the block, and that was actually kind of a blessing, honestly, to see that they weren't even in there, because what that tells me is that this block hasn't been sitting over the winter with the plug in it. I don't know how long this gentleman I bought it from had it, but at least the plugs weren't in it, which is good, which means it was never not winterized properly at some point. Somebody at least knew enough to pull the plugs out. After running it for that little bit, we probably had it running for a total of maybe 3 minutes, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes. Enough for it to warm up for the butterfly to open up and for the manifold to start spitting out some hot water. So we got to see it run, and runs well. Well, the engine's tight. It doesn't run well yet. I've got the timing somewhat close. At least it fires, starts, and runs. I'll actually do some actual timing light timing whenever I can get this thing to idle. Until I get it to idle, I can't really set the timing. So it's kind of like a chicken egg thing. Get the timing a little closer, maybe it'll idle. Get the idle get it running a little bit better. I can check the timing. But when I say chicken egg, I'm going to take one of the variables out, and I'm going to get this carburetor taken apart, cleaned up. The accelerator pump seemed to work when I pumped it all the way. I'm guessing some stuff in there is dried out a little bit, but it's amazing that the accelerator pump still did work a little bit. Like I said, this automatic choke worked like a champ. I almost hate to take it off, but I'll take it off and clean it up and put it back on, and I'll show you guys how to adjust that stuff. So part 2 of this video is going to be carburetor, plug up a few holes. We're going to show you how to set timing on an engine like this. Pretty simple. You saw everything I did on the other ignition side to get it to where it actually will run. There again, didn't realize that I was running it the whole time with it in gear, because the neutral safety switch has been disabled, but it was running in gear. I didn't hear any unusual noise coming out of the prop or the outdrive. I did fill that up with gear oil, as you saw, and that's why. If I wouldn't have done that or checked that, that thing would have been running bone dry. As you saw, boy, they couldn't have been 6, 7, 8, 10 tablespoons of gear oil down in there, and this holds at least 40 ounces. This time I actually kind of checked it because I put a full quart in it, and then about 4 more ounces. That filled her up to the top. Anybody that you ever hear of trying to fill it up from the top down, buyer beware. Fortunately, this guy had tried that. Obviously didn't run it very long, because in this condition of the carburetor as I see it is right now, there's no way it ran very long. So I'm going to pull this carburetor off. I'm going to make sure the rest of this water in the bottom of the boat now, a lot of it. I'm going to see if I can get some holes poked in here and get it to drain on out. But I bought a tarp today, a 5 foot by 7 foot tarp. I'm literally going to screw the eyelets right into this, so that if I do get some rain and that comes in, I can keep it off of this engine. The other night, it was kind of funny. My wife says, I said I had to park this underneath. Where did I park it at? Oh, I parked it in that open spot down there. And my wife's like, why you got to park it in there? I said, because it's supposed to rain tonight. She goes, this has been sitting out in the rain a lot, I'm guessing. I'm like, yeah, but now I have it. And I said, my heart of hearts won't let me sit in the rain without a cover on it. And if you look around my property, all the boats I have a cover on them. They have a cover even if they're undercover, because it keeps them cleaner. I can show you a boat cover out there that's been out there for about a year on the old rinker, and it's filthy on top, but you lift it up, still clean under, well, as clean as I left it on the underside. So I'm gonna get the old tarp out here after I pick up a few tools. I'm gonna go ahead and pull this carburetor off before I cover it up this evening. And it's only 4 bolts. You know, take a linkage loose. I mean, this spring, look at that, half taken apart already. Spring off of there, couple of bolts. 1, 2, 3, 4 bolts, hose, and this little heat riser fitting. The carburetor's in my hands. And we'll do that inside into some bright light, and we'll get this thing all taken apart, cleaned up, and put back together. We're gonna do the old fandangle quick rebuild job. And you know, when I buy stuff for these old boats, I wish I'd have done it for this one. This is the Rochester 2-Jet. It's in there. It's funny how it's on multiple boats, multiple styles of boats, and it's weird to whether this carburetor is sitting this way or turned 90 degrees, but it's the exact same carburetor. It's just however somebody, you know, whatever manufacturer, whatever configuration they wanted their carburetor, or how they were gonna have their linkages hooked up, but it's the same carburetor, and it's actually, in my book, it's been pretty reliable. It would be cool to have if Edelbrock actually made something for these at some point in history, because Edelbrock's supposed to, you know, I've seen them on all the car stuff, and a polished Edelbrock would look pretty good on here, but Edelbrock ain't gonna waste their time on this joker. Even better yet, a little tiny throttle body fuel injection system on this would be sweet, wouldn't it? A couple of sensors and then electronic ignition. I always try to update these to a flamethrower coil and electronic ignition, because they just work. They actually seem a little crisper. Points work great. Don't get me wrong, the points will go a long time, and they're very mechanical. And if they do get a little dirty, like you saw me today, you sand them, go some more. Easy peasy, right? The advanced weights, and when I throttled it up, all that seemed to work really good. When I revved it up, the wide open throttle position in that circuit in the carburetor was working great, because you could just rev that bad boy right on up, and worked really good. But I'm pleased as punch. Now here again, guys, like I've been telling you, this was a pig and a poke. No question about it, 100%. $300 worth of aggravation here between, you know, everything I got. I think I got a pretty good outdrive. I'm pretty sure I got a pretty good engine. Seems pretty tight. I could see if somebody was playing around with it before, they kept dumping gas after gas after gas, and it just went on down into the oil. I did pull the dipstick. The oil looks clean. No water got into it. I've got great compression. That means the head gasket's holding tight. This is a solid motor. This is a engine. This is a solid engine. And but yeah, I want to get it running a little bit better, timed out a little better. I want everything to run really good. I want to start, idle, throttle up, restart, and all that fun stuff. We're also going to dig into the wiring a little bit on the next video. I've got a crimping tool. I've got the wires. You saw me banging on you might have. I hope I didn't cut that out. Maybe I will. I'm banging on the starter, trying to get things to click in and click out, because it would engage, but it wouldn't turn over. And that could be just poor connections. And I'm going to put some new ends on the battery cables are like this long. They only need to be this long. So I'm going to go ahead and trim them off. I'm going to crimp some new ends on it, because that's going to help me when I put this on an engine stand and run it. Actually, I want to adjust the valves while it's in here. I want to do a whole bunch of stuff while it's in the boat. And why? I don't know. Just seems kind of fun doing it out here in the boat. Yeah. Yeah, we had amperes. We had the temperature gauge was coming up, and we had oil pressure. That's all the things you're looking for. Oh, back up to what I was saying. $300. $300. I've got a spare engine that'll fit in one of 3 boats that I know. My 2 and my friend of mine's. So if for some reason one of our old Iron Dukes decided to go poopy on us, looks like a few bolts worth of time and effort, and I can separate this engine right off its mounting plate and get it sitting in another boat pretty quick. The old alternator looks all white and powdery on the outside from sitting out in the sun and being weathered. Still kicking out some amperages. Some of this stuff from this era is just tough. It's just, I don't know. A lot of this stuff was built before the engineers really got good with the CNC equipment and all the modern, you know, the 300,000 mile motors we have in our cars today. But you can't discount these guys. These things were built tough. That's why they called this old Chevy 2.5 liter block and setup here. That's why they call it the Iron Duke. It's just tough. It's tough as the old Duke. And it's iron. It's heavy. There's no doubt about it. It's heavy. There's a lot of things that would be aluminum today that is not. And for 2 reasons. It could dissipate heat better, and it would weigh a lot less. I mean, for goodness gracious, this could have easily had an aluminum block. I mean, this motor we could have shaved 100 pounds off this motor, or this engine. I keep calling it a motor, but that's okay. You guys know what I mean. All right, I got to clean up my mess here. I'm going to get this carburetor pulled off, and I'll see you folks on the next video. I hope you enjoyed this, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Hit that notification bell so you get notified whenever I drop a video. I got about this much water in the bottom of the boat now that was just dumping. But that's okay. This engine is tight. This is one of the first engines I've seen that wasn't covered in a lot of grease and stuff. I do have a valve cover gasket on order. These are a rubber type of gasket. And as you can see this here, you probably can't see, there's not a lot of oil that spills out. But under pressure and under splattering and stuff, it doesn't take much to seal these up and keep them tight. All right. Got to get back after it. I'll see you on the next video. This is Michael, saying if it ain't broke, fix it till it is. Or fix it till it isn't.